Hello, this is Elena with Black Sheep 303 Creative, and my project today I am really excited about. It is a Father's Day Lighthouse beach scene using the Lawn Fawn Scalloped Box Card Pop-Up dies that I'm a bit obsessed with. And I also use Critters in the Sea Lawn Fawn stamps as well as Life is Good Lawn Fawn stamps. I do want to apologize for the length of the video, but this is a slightly complicated project, and my Mother's Day floral box card pop-up got some feedback that it was a bit quick, so I've tried to slow it down here at least a little bit so that you can maybe follow along more easily. But as you can see, I am stamping several of the stamps from the two stamp sets using archival ink. I'm stamping this onto Bristol smooth cardstock because I'm going to be using my Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. And my ink pad was like kind of dried out, so everything did not stamp real well. So I did go over quite a bit of this with my Copic liner just to kind of get the blacks really filled in any areas that didn't stamp so well. And now, as I mentioned, I'm going to use my Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers and some water. So I'm using Carmine Red right now on my Lighthouse. And I'm just going to dip my water brush in some water and then just pull the color out from where I drew it on the edge there. And this kind of creates natural shading. So it's going to be darkest in the corner where I drew it, and then it's going to get lighter as I draw the color out, especially as I have more and more water. And then I'm going to go on the other side and add some more in and pull that out from that side. And so you'll get sort of natural darkness on the edges and lighter in the center, and it creates sort of natural shading. And then there's some light gray that I did the same on the white sections for as well. And it does take a couple times of like adding the color to really get it dark and as dark as I wanted it. And then on the palm branches, I am using, let's see here, 65 mid brown and doing the exact same thing. So I've colored it down sort of heavier on one side than the other, and then I'm pulling it out with the water. The branches I'm using 47 May green, and this I will actually go back several times, you'll see during this, to kind of darken down the color. You can see as you add water, it lightens up quite a bit, and some of the shading gets a little bit lost. So just, go back and add more. And sometimes it'll get so wet that you can't really do it anymore, like the sandbank down there. So just wait for it to dry, and then you can just add more on top. And now this is 64 oatmeal that I'm using on my sandbank and my sandcastle. Again, doing the exact same technique on the sandcastle to just add shading to the outer edges or anywhere where it would seem dark. And then that's mid-brown, darkening in the windows and the door. And then I'm adding mustard on top of that to give it a little more of a golden hue, so it looks like golden sands. My turtle, I'm using 43 olive green on the sort of insides, and then it's 46 mid green on the insides and 43 olive green on his sort of scaly parts. And that seemed really olivey to me, which was okay, but I wanted him to be a little bit greener, so I added in some 41 light green there just on his, I guess those are scales? I don't think they're scales, but I don't know what else to call them. My hermit crab is using mustard on his shell and 24 red wine on his body to kind of differentiate him a little bit from my other red. And then my crab is 52 bright yellow and 22 carmine red to give him more of like an orangey red body. My starfish is 50 yellow and 52 bright yellow. Same with my little fishy guy there. And I could just kind of go back and forth adding more shading to get it to the color I want. And then the coconuts are the same as the palm, so I added the mid-brown and then mustard on top of that to give it some shading and dimension. And then I will additionally stamp 2 extra shells and the little sand bucket for the front of my card and color them using the same colors exactly the same way. And I will list all the colors that I'm using on the blog post if you really want to know exactly which color I used for what. And there you can see I'm just going back and forth, adding more. I added some black to the windows of the lighthouse and some more light gray to the little top there. And again, a little more green for the trees. And that's really all there is to the coloring. Pretty easy. And then I did some black glaze pen on the eyes of the critters. Now for construction, you will need 2 of the big box pieces from the Scalloped Box Card Pop-Up die set and 2 of the tabs. I call them tabs. I'm not sure what they really are, but I'm going to call them the inner tabs. I cut this from 100-pound Elizabeth Craft Designs soft finish white cardstock. You do need some heavy duty cardstock, and it needs to be white because we're going to do a fair amount of distress blending on this guy. Now I am just folding and reinforcing the folds that are part of the die. They just come in there. And then these are the horizontal folds that are like the upper flaps of the box, I guess. And the large flaps, don't fold those down. I did do the front one, but as I learned, it probably would be better if you don't fold that down. So just bear that in mind. And then the two little side flaps are what adhere the box together. But we're going to modify the very front of the box. So I'm taking what is going to become the front panel, and you can see that lower half is 2 1/4 inches wide, and we're going to score it at 1 1/8. So you're going to score it just on that panel in half. And you want to get a really good score because that's going to become a new fold. And then take a scissors and trim down that inner connector just to the fold line. And then fold that back and reinforce that really nicely. And so that is going to become the new front fold on the box. So you can see how if I hadn't folded that top flap down, it might be a little better, but it actually doesn't really show that much in the end. So if you do it, don't worry about it because it gets fixed. Now to adhere the box together, we're going to just do the 2 side panels first, but you will need the 2 tabs. So to adhere the box panels together, you're going to put some heavy duty double-sided adhesive tape on one of the flaps. And this is 6mm Elizabeth Craft Designs clear double-sided adhesive tape. And then you're just going to adhere the flap to the other piece of the box. And it's easier to do it from the outside, in my opinion, like I'm doing it right now. And you do want to kind of check it and line it up to make sure it's lined up well before you press that down. And then you're going to cut that front tab on the left there in half. You're going to cut that down to 1 1/8 inches. But it doesn't matter if you do that now. I did do it ahead of time, but you could do it afterwards as well. And I'll tell you when. Now I'm taping off the 2 upper side flaps and the bottom of the bottom part of the box. This is the back panel of our little scene, and I'm using tumbled glass and my distress blender, and I'm just blending it from the craft mat onto that flap only. Now it probably wouldn't have mattered if I had you don't have to necessarily tape off the bottom part, but you do have to tape off the sides. You don't want to get that ink on those 2 side flaps. And then this is going to be the front bottom flap. This gets a little confusing. So I'm taping off the side flaps and then the top of this, and you're going to make sand on the top. So this is antique linen first, just blending it on. And I'm not trying to be super careful or super smooth with my blend because I want some actual dimension. And then this is tea dye, and I'm going super lightly over the antique linen with the tea dye to get some kind of funky sand texture and differences in shading going on. So that's where I'm saying you don't have to worry about it being a smooth blend because you actually kind of want that differentiation in color to create some realism. And now we're adding water. So this is tumbled glass, and I'm going over the sand, and I'm just blending it on from the sides into kind of top third of that area. And then this is salty ocean, and so I'm blending through the middle of the ocean section and then into the tumbled glass because we're going for an ombre blue here. And again, I'm not trying to be super smooth because I'm going to go back again. Here's the tumbled glass. I'm going back into the salty ocean, which helps smooth it down. But you have to remember that ocean water isn't normally entirely one color or entirely the same shade of color all in one line. So I didn't mind that I got a little bit of sort of darker patches here and there. And this is Blueprint Sketch. So I'm doing the same thing. I'm just blending from the mat onto the cardstock. And then I'm going to go over that with the salty ocean. And that takes down the purpliness of that Blueprint Sketch to more of the turquoisey blue that you kind of associate with, I don't know, tropical waters, I guess. And then that will complete the little ocean part of this. And then we're going to do, so that's how it's going to connect together. And then we're going to do the inner tabs. Now I did the inner tabs with half sand, so using antique linen, and then tea dye, and then half sky, which was the tumbled glass. And I did both of them exactly the same way. I think it's fine, but looking at it after it was finished, I think it might have been better if I'd done the front tab all sand and then the back tab half and half. Or you could have done both of them all sand. It's kind of personal preference. And this is the back of the box. It will be what is the front of the box when it's folded closed. So I'm doing like sky and sand. So I've got this piece of blue tape that I'm just sort of randomly moving in like a sort of a like hill look to it. And I use the tumble glass on the top, exactly as we did the sky in the back. And then this is the antique linen to create some sand across the bottom. And again, I'm not trying to be like smooth at all. And here's tea dye. And tea dye I did do very lightly just because it's kind of a dark color. But I liked that it gave this sort of funky, model-y look to it because I thought it looked pretty realistic. And so that is basically the completed look after you've done all your distress blending. So to assemble the entire box together, you need to put double-sided adhesive tape on the little, the outer flaps on the inner tabs, and then that front flap of the box. Now you could have cut it down in half, that front flap, or it could be whole at this point. It doesn't matter. But line up your inner tab straight with the upper fold, and then put it down about 2/3 of the way back in that front. And then the second tab, you're going to go down about 1/4 of an inch and bring it in about 1/3 of an inch away from the front. And that'll be your 2 tabs in place. Now they need to be straight across. So line that up with the first one with that upper fold, and then the second one with the first one. Remove your adhesive from the second tabs, press down the box, and then your box is together and constructed. Now at this point you could cut that front tab because you'll see it sticking up here. So you could just trim it off from the inside along that front fold if you need to, and you didn't want to cut it down without knowing how it was going to line up. Now for the front of my box, it's kind of the arrangement I was thinking, and I wanted to stamp "Life is Good" on it. Now if I'd been smart, I would have done this before I put the box together, but I didn't. So I decided I would grab my Misty and stamp it that way. And it worked out just fine. So I used my archival ink again to stamp "Life is Good," which is from the Life is Good stamp set. And I just stamped it once, and it wasn't totally perfect because, again, my ink pad wasn't super inked. So I did it a second time, and it was much better. Now I did get some little archival ink on the upper corner there when I picked up those seagulls, so I fixed that a little bit later. And then I added 3 dots to "Life is Good," so it's like a continuation of the sentence to bring it inside. Now I have this little hillside that I cut with the stitched hillside borders, and then I cut it down to fit inside the box. Here are all my components that I colored earlier, and then here's the Happy Father's Day greeting I stamped from the Happy 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 stamps and die set. I die cut it out with the happy matching die, and then I just fussy cut out the Father's Day part of that. And then I use mini clothespins. That is my key for putting things into these boxes. They work really well. They're like perfect tiny. They fit right in there, and it's magic. So if you have any mini clothespins lying around, get those out if you're going to be making this box. All right, so I've put some double-sided adhesive tape on the back of my green hillside here that is going to go in the very, very back of the box. And I'm just going to tuck that down in so it covers up the bottom of the sky, and it's almost all the way across the bottom. And then I was going to put my lighthouse down because that's going to go on the hill. But I realized as I was putting the tape on that I should probably put my palm trees in first, just because the palm trees were going to frame the lighthouse, and I wanted to do that so I could get the lighthouse in the right place. So I'm using Zig 2-8 glue on the palm trees, and here's my little clothespin trick. So I actually go in from underneath to clothespin the trunk onto the tab. And that holds it in place until it gets nice and stuck. And it doesn't take very long to stick. And then I'm going to do the second one over on the other side and do that same trick with the clothespin, this time from the top down. And now I'm going to stick my lighthouse sort of in between the two in the back. Now the little antenna does stick up over the top of the box, so you do see that when it's closed, but I wasn't too concerned about that. Now my sandbank's going to go in the very, very front. So I'm putting 3mm adhesive on the very front of it, and I'm adhering it to the front part of the box just above the sand. And then I'm going to adhere my little crab down like against the sand on the inside of the front of the box to kind of cover up where the sand doesn't quite reach across. Now the door gets cut out of the sandcastle when you die cut it out, so I actually wanted to keep it, so I stuck it back in using some double-sided tape, and then I'm just going to use the double-sided tape to adhere the sandcastle to that first tab next to the palm tree. Now, scale's a little off. You know, palm trees should be a lot bigger than sandcastles, but you know what? I'm not going to worry about it. It's super cute. Who cares? And so the hermit crab is going to go next to the sandcastle, kind of under the palm. And then the starfish is going to go on the other side eventually. Now my little seagulls I put in the back, and I adhered those down with some zig and just held them down with a block while they dried. My little fish is going down with some zig in the sea, and then my happy from Happy Father's Day is going diagonally across the entire like little ocean piece. And this is going to cover up most of that fold, so you really won't even notice the fact that that fold was there and that I folded it when I shouldn't have. And it's going to keep it nice and straight too. It keeps it nice and flat. And you do need to adhere that down pretty darn well. Now my turtle is going to go in the lower right hand corner, and so I'm using some double-sided tape for this to adhere him down. As you can see, I've used sort of a combination of tape and zig. So anywhere that it was like sort of a small, really small area or sort of a weirdly shaped area, I'm using the zig. And then otherwise I'm using either 3mm or 6mm double-sided adhesive tape. And so Father's Day is going down with the tape, but like the starfish that you see there on the right is going to go down with the zig because it's just kind of easier. And you can play it by ear, but those are my favorite adhesives for putting these things together. So I'm just going to add some zig to my starfish and get him in place to the right of my sandcastle, and the little scene is done on the inside. So to dress up those two outer flaps, I cut some paper using the included matching little stitchy rectangle. The paper is from the Cartabella 6x6 Flora No. 1 paper pack. And so I'm just going to put these into those outer flaps. And I thought it was so cute. It kind of looks like, I don't know, like little beach shacks or something. It makes it very like beachy and nautical looking, I thought, in the end. If I do say so myself. Now you can see my like nasty smudge up there on the right or the left that I tried to fix. Well, I couldn't fix it. So I'm taking some clouds from the Lawn Fawn Puffy Cloud Frames die set. And I covered that up with one cloud and putting the second one over on the other side. And then I'm going to add my seagulls into kind of the center to finish off the front of the card. And this is a lot more decorating than I normally do on these cards, but I just thought it was so cute I had to do it. And then the back side, I can easily write a message like in the sand part, or really the tumbled glass too, because they're both fairly light and you could write with pen on top of that. Not, pretty easily. And that is the completed project. And I was really happy with how it turned out. I liked how cutting down the front like kind of allowed me to get more things into the scene. At least you could see more of it, I felt like, because it's much more layered, and I like that about it. And if you've watched any of my other videos on this, you know I'm obsessed with this die set. Like, I totally love it. This is my favorite die set so far for the year, so I'm gonna use it for every holiday. And I did one for Easter and Mother's Day that I'll have linked at the end of the video, and this is my Father's Day version, and I just love it, if I do say so myself. So I hope I've given you a little inspiration for yet another awesome way you can use the Scalloped Box Card Pop-Up dies from Lawn Fawn. If you are really tempted to purchase anything as a result of this video, I would really appreciate it if you would follow the link in the video description to my blog and click through the product links on my blog post. So I will get a little tiny commission off of anything you purchase as a result of clicking those links, and it costs you nothing extra, but it does help support me and my blog. And if you liked the video, please give me a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed yet, why not? You need to subscribe right now. Here are those two other box card videos I mentioned. Thanks so much. Have a great day.